Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Oryx. This is M. Today we're going to be showing you Super Lumi Live. It's an amazing 2D platformer. It's really fast paced. It has a lot of really neat tech in it. I think we're good to just get right into it. So the category today is going to be all levels tokenless. And I'm going to give a countdown. Let's start in 3, 2, 1, go. So the first thing you're going to see, there were two different versions. This version, tokenless, eliminates all of the token requirements in the game, which makes it even more fast-paced than it already was. In terms of mechanics, Super Lumi Live is a bit of a standard 2D platformer. It's got all your basic jumping, running, etc. There's no wall jumps, but you do get a double jump. So every time that you leave the ground, you can jump one more time. One of the things that we're going to be trying to use as much as we can is building up extra momentum. There's usually a hard cap on, or a soft cap, I suppose, on the amount of forward momentum you get by just running forwards. But if you are going off of the end of a platform, you gain that platform's momentum. So if it's moving backwards, you go slower. If it's moving forwards, you go faster. Because we're going to have to beat all levels, there's a couple of funny things we're going to have to do, like this portal exit. Every portal exit in the game, you have to go through an entrance portal. You have to collect the 5 green coins, and then you have to go through the exit. And that'll take you to one of these flip levels or letter levels, called such because they have flip tokens and they're labeled with letters. Everything is very quick in World 1, so I'm not getting much time to explain it right now. But here we have to not just beat the portal exit of 1-3, we have to go through the regular exit as well, because otherwise the level doesn't count as beaten, and so we haven't beaten all levels. The all levels cleared condition at the end of the game doesn't get met otherwise, so we do have to do all of this. Now, each level in the game has its own kind of a theme, and each world has a kind of a meta theme. So this first world's big theme it's a intro tutorial kind of a thing. It kind of introduces all of the basic concepts, goes over them, shows you what kind of themes the levels will have. So, for example, 1-5 has a pretty clear theme. There's a bunch of these gray platforms, and they all have spikes on the bottom. So you can hit them, you can stand on top of them for the most part, but you cannot go under them or you will die. Or you can't hit them from the beneath, that is. At the end of each world, there's going to be a boss level. So this first boss level is 1-boss or 1-skull. All of these boss levels are, for the most part, just rehashes of everything else in the world. It's kind of like a final test, if you will. Everything that was gone through in the previous world is kind of put all together, and you have to figure out how to deal with all of it at once. Now we're going to enter World 2. This is going to be a longer world. It's going to introduce a lot of new things. First of which is these bumpers that you see, the green arrows. They'll bump you in the direction of the arrows. That's usually going to be up, but we'll see later that that's not always the case. And if you land on them and you don't have your double jump, it will give you your double jump back. Next, we go a bit out of order because of routing in the overworld. 2-3 is our next level. We want to get this secret out of the way first, and then come back to the main level on the way back. 2A is going to be combining all of these with the green arrows with the flipping. And that's kind of the theme of all of the flip levels. It's flipping the gravity changes a lot of how other things work. So, for example, the arrows now are pushing in a lot of different directions instead of just up. They can point in any of the 4 directions. Now, 2-7's main theme is going to be these cycling around platforms and discs. Everything is on a very specific set cycle, so Emm0ji's going to be trying to make it pretty much the fastest cycle you can reasonably make. Now we go back. We've unlocked the boss level with that, but we do still have to beat the rest of the world and all of its levels, so it's faster to backtrack through here than to do anything else. Now, this second half of 2-3 is going to feature a lot of these down-pointing arrows. And they're over a big chasm, which means that you really don't want to be hitting into those. Those will just propel you straight down to your death. Two 4 is going to be a lot of kind of supposed to be auto-scroller stuff, but we just skip all of the slow-moving platforms that we can until we get to this last one of the level, which really isn't skippable. But that's going to be another theme that you're going to see through this game. There's a lot of things that are supposed to be auto-scrollers that are supposed to be taken slowly that we just skip entirely or just whiz by really fast with certain exploits. Two 6 is introducing these blue platforms. They have a single circle in the middle of them, and that's to indicate that they're there as long as you have only used your single jump. As soon as you use your double jump, they disappear. And that includes like using it without using your single jump. Like if you run off the end of a platform and then use your double jump, it still counts and they'll still disappear. Now, later in this level, we're also going to see another new type of platform. World 2 introduces, I believe, 3 new types of platforms, including these blue ones, as well as these yellow platforms with 2 circles. They only appear once you've used your double jump, and they'll disappear as soon as you land anywhere other than on top of them. Now, the next level we're going to be going through is 2-5. 2-5 is introducing these gray or beige platforms. When you stand on them, they have a short delay, and then they disappear. After a longer delay, they will then reappear. So you can see after about a second, the circle in the middle will run out, and the platform disappears. Then the circle slowly... I suppose, goes away again, and the platform will reappear at the end of that timer.
I thought I was dead.
Yeah, the hitboxes of these things are quite forgiving, especially when you go through a door. The door takes priority over just about everything else. 2-2, we kind of saved for last, and so it doesn't really introduce all too much new. Just something to talk about, I guess, is sometimes you'll see Emm die as soon as she hits a checkpoint. That's intentional restarts, just to set up cycles later in the level. A lot of the cycles that you're given, if you just go through it without resetting ever, are really unfavorable. They make you go slower, they make you work harder to go the same speed, etc. So we take a lot of resets to make that easier. Now, the boss level in this world is an auto-scroller, really. You take a reset there specifically so we can set up this a lot easier. If you find that hidden thing, you can skip the second half of that first auto-scroller, and it saves about 15 seconds. Now, the second half of the level is also an auto-scroller, but this time vertical, which makes it even more stressful because now if you fall down, you can't get back up and keep going. You'll just die if you go off the end of the screen. Now, the nice thing for speedrunning these levels is in the first part of this auto-scroller and throughout the entire other auto-scroller, if you stand right at the very top or the right side, it'll go faster. And of course, what's an auto-scroller if not... What's an auto-scroller best followed by if not another auto-scroller? This level is very much the same. You have to stand on this platform. It introduces everyone's favorite enemy, by which I mean least favorite enemy in the game, the green cannons. They are homing into you and they shoot at predetermined intervals, and they're not all the same intervals. So sometimes you'll get things like these two cannons, which are firing the right one slightly slower than the left, and it makes dodging both of them even harder. Now we're into 3-2. This is one of the most impressive uses of that boosting, speed boosting off of forward-moving platforms in the beginning of it, just to bring up your speed to an almost ridiculous amount by the time you reach the middle. Now 3-3 is going to start out. We're going to have the secret exit, or the portal that's right near the beginning. This one is especially difficult because to even make some of these jumps, you have to be going in the opposite direction that the discs are spinning around, which makes dodging them twice as hard. The hitboxes of those discs are really lenient. They just let you go under them if you're standing there, which is nice. Now, the second half of this level introduces the purple enemies that you see, the Toxies. They're smiling and they want to hug you. And that's not good because they kill you if they hug you. In any case, now we enter 3-4, which is going to immediately have the secret exit or the portal at the beginning. This one, it's difficult to dodge the enemies and still get those last 2 coins, especially. The enemies, by the way, they're new. These ones are called chokies. We find that a very appropriate name because these levels are some of the easiest to miss a cycle and just choke an otherwise good run. They always move on fixed cycles that are predetermined. So if you just memorize where to go, they will always be in the same places. Some of the cycles are really tight to make, though.
That's why I don't run Tokenless.
Yeah, the menuing in this game and a lot of similar games where you have to navigate between levels is something that we try to optimize as much as we can. And you can buffer entering a level after, and actually you can buffer multiple map movements at a time. It only seems like you're doing them in a strict amount of time. And so sometimes trying to buffer that makes it unfortunately go slightly slower when we re-enter. Now, the next level we're going to see, I believe, is 3.6. No, 3.5. 3.5 introduces these spikes that go up and down out of the platforms. They're going to always be on a fixed cycle from reset. So from the start of the level, as long as everything goes to plan, they'll always line up in the same way.
Oh.
Yeah. Their hitbox is probably the most strict thing in this game in terms of hitboxes. As soon as they pop even the slightest bit up, you die if you hit them. So you can die without even seeing them on the platform. 3.6 is an entirely vertical level. It's pretty much unique in that way. You just have to platform all the way up, dodging various toxies and enemies. And this is the only level where the portal exit is like right at the very end of the level. So if you go through that door right there, that's actually just the end of the level. 3C is one of the shortest levels in the game, and it's made even shorter by just speedrunning it, going through everything as quickly as possible. It's not very long anyways because the lasers chasing you kind of fix a speed that you have to surpass, but there's a lot of little micro optimizations here and there in it. And now we're going on to 3.7. This one will introduce our last new type of block in this world. It's going to be these yellow blocks. As long as you're standing on them, they will always be on. But as soon as you jump off, they disappear. You can't land on them again. They will reappear on a fixed timer after about 3 seconds. And if you're inside one of them when they reappear, it's gonna kill you. Now we go on to 3 Skull. This is my favorite level in World 3 because the entire thing is in the dark for the most part. It makes it very important to know the entire level, its layout, where everything is, what cycles you can and can't make, what is going to be next based on where the cycles are lined up at the moment. And all these discs fire at specific intervals, so as long as you go through it the same way or memorize the patterns, you should be able to figure out everything every time. Now we move on to World 4. It's going to introduce really most of the last things that we're going to be seeing new in this run. For starters, 4.1 is going to introduce these lasers. They're like they're going to kill you, and they can move sometimes. Sometimes they can't. I'm really well prepared for this, you can tell. Uh, 4.2 introduces another new platform. These are the pink platforms. They will be kind of like your on and off blocks. Every time you jump, they switch between on and off. And that includes using your double jump. This makes it very important, especially in later parts of the level, to remember which part of the cycle you're on, whether it's on or off. World 4 is the longest of any of the worlds. It has the most levels with a total of 13, including the boss. Uh, 4.3 is a fairly straightforward level. It's called Return of the Key because there's a locked door right at the start that's red. You need to collect a key to unlock that, and that is going to be the red key. Each of these keys unlocks the door of the same color. So the blue key unlocks the blue door, the yellow key unlocks the yellow door, the red key unlocks the red door. And of course, you have to backtrack the entire way to get back. They're only saved once you get a checkpoint, and there's a checkpoint right next to the red key. Now, 4.4 is going to introduce the rotating lasers. They're a lot harder to dodge than just moving lasers. It's also got one of the best hidden secrets in the game. Well, a couple of the best hidden secrets in the game, including this right here. This level was incredibly hard to find for most people, and it is going to lead to 4S. 4S is very short level. If you don't go around everywhere in it, as long as you know where you're going, it'll be the second quickest level in the game, really. Now, we've already unlocked the boss, but we do still have to, again, go through every level in the world, this being all levels. World 4 has an intense love for green cannons. We don't like it as much because they kill us a lot. This level in particular, 4-7, has some of the worst. On this section where you have to grab all the coins, there's green cannons shooting at you from every angle. So you have to be really careful to make sure you're always moving.
No.
Staying in the same place for too long and not getting sniped through the portal. However, while these are some of the worst green cannons in the game, they are not quite the worst, as we'll see soon. Foresee says, I take your green cannons and I turn them full speed. They're just shooting constantly. It's like 15 shots a second, I believe. And now we'll need to complete the rest of 4-7. This level doesn't just like its green cannons a lot, it loves spikes. There's spikes just about everywhere here. Every surface it doesn't want you to touch, there's a spike there. There's a lot of checkpoint resets in this part of the level that are important to just keep on a fast cycle. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting for a lot longer. Now we go into 4-8. This is going to introduce, I believe, our last new type of platform. These are the disappearing timed platforms. They will all disappear at certain intervals and reappear at other intervals. When they're going to disappear, they turn from green to red, and then they disappear, and a circle fills up, they reappear. Also, that was just the fastest level in the game that I kind of glossed over while I beat it in 7 seconds. 4-8 has a lot of cycles that we can skip really easily or just make a lot quicker than otherwise intended. For example, in the last room, you're intended to have to stop and wait, but we really don't. We can just barely edge it out. Now this level, I believe, is the first one with these yellow fields. Correct me if I'm wrong. They allow you to jump infinitely while within them. As soon as you exit them, you keep your double jump. And this right here is one of the hardest secrets in the game, if not the hardest. and it leads to one of the easiest letter levels in the game, 4A. This, we skip a lot of this section just by entering from an unintended orientation that allows us to fall straight down instead of flipping 3 additional times. Now, something to note, a lot of these secret doors that Em is going into that seem kind of pointless unless you're trying to skip something do have a purpose in the main game. Normally, they have various tokens inside of them. We're playing on Tokenless, though, so we only go in there when it's faster to do so than it is otherwise. This is another very difficult portal exit, and I'm going to be quiet. Okay, so those blue fields that you see, they reduce the gravity by a factor of about 2. While you're inside them, you'll stay in the air about twice as long. You'll fall about half as fast, and you'll go about 3 times as high. And it's important in this last section to stay in them as long as possible because you want to make sure you maintain enough speed to go over the next spike set. Now, these red fields are very much the opposite of the blue fields. They'll pretty much double gravity, so everything is going to fall twice as fast. You're going to jump only about half as high, if that, and you're going to fall a lot faster, which makes a lot of jumps, especially this last jump, much more difficult. Now it's time for 4-boss, the Tower of Power. This is the longest boss level in the main game. And it just goes as a rehash of everything else in the game. You kind of go through step by step, going through kind of the same pattern of a room. With various different obstacles in order of kind of increasing difficulty as far as how the game progresses. So we're starting out very simple with a lot of basic platforming, just a little bit of dodging. Right here, there's another secret place that you can go. There's normally a collectible there, but we get to skip it. Now, this is the second half of the level. Things are going to get a lot harder. This room in particular, dodging all of these, your momentum gets a bit uncontrollable. The green cannons are green cannons, and we hate them. And here we have the pixel. It's very fun. You can just stand on a pixel of the door that's sticking out just a little bit from the wall. Whenever those 2 separate textures. The gray blocks and a wall meet. Something is protruding, either the gray block or the wall. And you can always pretty much stand on it. And it's very swag. Now we have the final area of the gauntlet. This is the hardest part. There's really no making a mistake here and surviving in any of these 2 rooms. Went with a minor cycle skip right at the top there. That's a little bit risky. But there's a reason that she's the world record holder, of course. And now we have the very end of the level. Just have to make this jump. And that is the longest level in the main game. And now it's on to World 5. The sort of theme of World 5 is going to be lava and fire. So you're going to see a lot of fire on the platforms. The floor is lava. You can't touch it. All sorts of motifs of fire. And of course, everything is that red color that fire is. I don't know. I'm bad at describing things. This level 5-2 is called Hot Drop and Scroll. It's one of those few level names that sticks with you because it's very thematic. Hot because it's in World 5, everything's fire. Drop because most of these platforms, when you stand on them, will fall down or slowly. And scroll because the very ending of this level is an auto-scroller. The first one we've had in a while. It's very long, so we want to take the checkpoint at the top there. What you want to do, you generally want to move these saws to the middle, wait for the platform to go up, and then just dodge everything on the way down to skip the auto-scroller. That's what we call the hot drop, because we skip the scroll. And that saves roughly 50 seconds. Now this is another one of the hardest portals in the game to get. It's almost impossible to consistently line up where the cycle of the spinning discs is in relation to how you're bouncing. And that was very nice to get a second try. Now 5-6 is going to introduce something new. These are invisible blocks. You can only see them very barely by the reflection of light from either discs or fire off of them. We're only going to see the first couple of seconds of that before 5B, but now this is the last kind of secret exit or portal exit of the main game. There's a little nice skip there that saves roughly 10 seconds from having to go around the whole way. Now the rest of this level is going to just be a lot more showcasing these invisible platforms, how they work. Funnily enough, this level is modeled off of World 1-2. 3, I believe.
Yes.
So if you just look at the general layout of this versus the general layout of 1-3, it's pretty much exactly the same after that first section. Now we're going back to 5.3. This is the last kind of recap of these blue and yellow platforms. It's just a lot of advanced stuff with them, knowing when you can and can't double jump. You have to double jump off of a blue platform plenty of times. This ending, there's no room for error. If you're not on a platform, you will have to double jump and everything will disappear and you'll die. Now 5.4 is kind of a 6-section level. You just go back and forth through various challenges. Each one gets a little bit harder than the last. That checkpoint reset sets up these platforms right here on a very nice cycle, as well as these last platforms, which can be pretty dicey depending on when you get there. Now 5.5 is the most tight platforming that you see in the game. It's the only level where there's not really like straight walls everywhere. It's all this sort of magma lava-esque glowing stuff, which makes it a lot tighter to platform around. Especially that last jump is incredibly tight. The last 3 jumps really are very precise. And now we have 5-boss. This is the last major level of the main game. It's not the last level of the game, however, because we do still have the bonus world left to do. The main theme of this boss level is the platforms that are created or taken away whenever you're in this portal world. And that was a really nice fast cycle to grab that second key early. Each of these levels has 2 portals, and just there's always a way to kind of skip something in the middle. In a lot of these, it's just you skip the entire second portal. So oftentimes you just don't even see it, don't know it's there. Other times, like in that room, you can go just barely fast enough to grab the key and get back, but you cannot quite always consistently go all the way to the end. And even in that last room, there is no middle portal, but you can still get to that last portal without needing to grab a new one. And now we're in 5-X. This is the big boss fight. That thing that's chasing Emm right now is going to follow the exact movement that she makes. Every time, every amount of time that she's away, it's going to get bigger. And so it's really important to make sure that doesn't catch up to you. Otherwise, you're going to get walled in fairly quickly. The key to going around this is you need to collect all 4 keys. There's 1 in each corner of the level. And then you have to get to the end. And Em is going about this in the fastest order you can do them. It's just go around clockwise, or yeah, clockwise from where you start. You can grab everything quickly, and now Em is beaten the last level of the main game. It's not quite time yet because we do still have the bonus world left, but we will see glimpses of the credits. We're going to see a death count. We're going to see a total time so far. And it's going to be a nice short break from the action. So I'm not quite certain what to say at this point. It's just a little waiting. Luckily, you can skip the credits after you've seen them once. Em has seen them countless times throughout the runs that she's done. So congratulations. Now go for all levels cleared. That's what we're going to be doing now. We get back in here and we have to actually beat 5 Skull. We didn't actually beat it in the what we just did. We just went through the portal to 5X. So we do have to now go to the very end. Your first time through this level on a save file, it doesn't actually let you. There's a big X on the door that blocks you from actually getting there. But after you've beaten the game, you can go back through it and get back in. And after that, it's on to the bonus world. The bonus world is going to be all of the toughest concepts in the game. It's an 8-level gauntlet, 4 normal levels, 4 portal levels or flip levels. That's all just the most incredibly challenging platform that the game could come up with. Now, this level, A1, is all based on the single jump blue platforms. And just forcing you to only use one jump, really. And now we're going on to AA. This is based on everything being completely covered in spikes. There's very few places to stand. There's a little quick thing that we can do right there to speed it up by just falling through there when you're supposed to flip the gravity a couple of times. But otherwise, it's a very straightforward level. But very difficult. Because there's nowhere to land if you have messed up a jump at any point. And now we're going back to A1. It's going to be just more of the same, just continuing to ramp up the difficulty with these fast falling platforms that'll just kill you on impact. The timing of this section is one of the hardest things in this game to master. Especially these platforms right here that are going up and down while you're also having to worry about these falling platforms. And of course, just for good measure, why not throw in some green cannons at the end? Now, A2 is next. It's based on these Toxies and having to dodge them and everything else in the level. When they start extremely close to you, especially in these places, they're incredibly difficult to just get around. And the level that comes next is going to just take that concept of them to a new level, introducing these crazed spoogies. The spoogies, they see you and they want to hug you so much that they charge at you. And it's very friendly, but them hugging us kills us, just like the Toxies. So we don't want that to happen. They're like, oh my gosh, it's my friend. And they want to hug you. But it's sad because we can't let them. This last part is especially dangerous because it's harder to dodge them in the low gravity. And now we're back to A2. We've only seen the start of this level, but like all of these levels, it's just going to get harder up until the end. At this point in the game, the difficulty really can't go anywhere except up. And this section especially, where you're dodging the discs on tracks, as well as these not one but two Toxies, makes for that one of the tightest squeezes in the game. Now we have A3. The secret is actually just straight to the left, which is one of my favorite things. It's the last place you'd expect to look, on the left of the start in a 2D platformer. And it's going to lead to AC in spiraling. True to its name, it's just a spiral around the center. There's that trick that Emm just went for. Missed the first time, saves about 10-15 seconds to just skip all of those flips entirely and just fall straight down there. And now we're back to the main level A3. This is all based on the interactions of the green disappearing platforms with everything else. And unfortunately, them appearing inside of you is still a problem. These are on one of the strictest timers in the game. There's barely enough time to make it to the next one if you do a perfect full jump off of each of them. And now finally, we have the last level. We're just going to see the very first screen of it. Still incredibly difficult. A skull. Even just to get the secret exit is incredibly intense. That takes a lot of practice to get down, and it is not nearly as easy as Emm just made it look getting it first try like that. and this is one of the hardest levels in the game to just route out which order you need to go, not just to the keys, to all of the flips that you need to make to get to where you need to go next. And finally, we are left with only one level remaining, A Skull, the incredible finale. We start out just right off the bat with these no jump double jumps that are just so difficult to time because you need to do it like right after you've gone off of the platform, but you can't do it too quickly or you'll bump into the ceilings. Now, of course, we're dodging bombs. We couldn't get away from it just in Four Skull. It's here too. And now we have the longest portion of the game that does not contain a checkpoint. At full speed, this takes 30 whole seconds to go through. And has some of the most difficult platforming stops that you can make. And of course, at the end, the spikes are falling. You have to outrun them as well. Although that's not going to be a problem for Emm. Here we have the tightest part of the game with green cannons. You have to make those jumps and lure the green cannons at the same time to not shoot directly into your face. One of the most difficult tricks in the level. Finally, this is the last difficult room, and it is a doozy. The last two jumps in this room are incredibly precise. You only have a few pixels of clearance over the disc. And right there, to get into that, it's really hard. Thankfully, you don't die if you miss it in the way that Emm just did. But getting that second try is amazing. Now we have the final screen of the game. If this weren't tokenless, it would say you're a super player or something to that regards, but time is coming up right now.
So 55:59. Full official time is coming up after credits.
Yeah. The sort of unofficial time is right in the bottom left. You see a 55:59 at the very bottom. That's the total amount of time that it's taken in full seconds, but the credits will give milliseconds at the very end for a more official time. In any case, it's been great to be here. Thank you so much for hosting this game. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm certain Emm would. You also love just playing this game in marathons, yes?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for commenting again for me.
Yeah. Always nice to be able to show off this amazing game. Huge shout outs to the developer for being so great and just communicative with all of us in the community. Huge shout outs to the rest of the community for just being super passionate about this game. And of course, big round of applause in the chat for Emm for having such an amazing run. Sub 1 hour in this category is something that's really difficult to get, and Emm is super consistent with it, which is just incredible. So great job, Emm, as always.
I am not 100% sure. I believe I missed the timing keyword, but I believe it was when the final level was completed, correct?
Yes.
Alright, okay. In that case, it was a 57-14 something.
Yes, including the
RTA.
yeah.
I got a little bit confused on the timing there due to the commentator delay. But
Yeah, sorry about that.
it's all
Sorry.
good.
The game, for like verification purposes, we go by the in-game time.
Which is the all levels time right there, 55:59.667. Once again, thank you guys so much for having us. It's been great.
Thanks for running. Thanks for running.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.